Yay! It's you! Welcome back to the One Behind the Lens Shutter Squad. I'm Kate, your host, your photographer, your storyteller. Today, we're talking about one little word that is so powerful. The title of this episode is The One Where I Said No and It Felt So Good. And oh, it really did. Here's the thing. Every photographer has a story, right? And sometimes the part of your story that really shapes your brand is not the highlight reel. It's the messy middle. The part where you figure out what you don't want, the part where you feel the anxiety, the doubts, the stress, and then you choose to make it different. That messy middle is actually where a lot of the magic and the freedom happens. And today, we're going to talk about a very powerful way to embrace my messy middle by saying no. Welcome to the One Behind the Lens, the show for photographers building bold, beautiful businesses behind the lens. I'm Kate Biz Bestie and I got one thing to say before we begin. You know how people say no is a complete sentence? I used to think that sounded a little blunt, maybe even harsh. And maybe it's because I always felt like I had to justify why I was saying no. And this could be for anything. It doesn't even have to pertain to photography, my business. It's funny because when I was told this by a friend that no is a complete sentence, I had to think about it as when I say yes, because if someone asks me something and I'm going to say yes to it, I don't justify why I'm going to tell them yes, but I always wanted to justify the no. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect at this, but I'm a lot better at just saying no with that period at the end. The more that I think about it, the more I've used the word no as a complete sentence, the more I realized it's actually one of the kindest things you can do for yourself and for others. Because saying no doesn't always mean rejecting people. Sometimes it just means that you're choosing the life and the work that actually lights you up instead of draining you. And sometimes saying no is exactly what turns your messy middle into the story you want to tell. Here's a little story to help you connect how I said no as a complete sentence. I've been a photographer for years, and like most photographers, when I started out, I was shooting everything: seniors, headshots, families, weddings, newborns. If it involved a camera, I was there. But I learned something about myself pretty quickly. Weddings and newborns, they just were not for me. And saying that out loud for the first time was scary because as photographers, we're told we should do everything. But I knew, my body knew. The anxiety that built up before a wedding was unreal. We're not talking the normal pre shoot nerves, we're talking weeks of anxiety. Like, it brought me back to my stage manager days in theater, where everyone looked at me to keep everything on schedule. So when I think of that, I had to think of it as wedding terms. Keep the groomsmen in line. Yes, even making sure their boutonnieres were on straight. So for some photographers, that's their dream gig. They thrive on the chaos, the big moments, the pressure. And I respect that so much. But for me, it was exhausting. It drained every ounce of energy out of me. And the kicker is, it doesn't even end when the wedding is over. Then comes editing. all of those images, album designs, more deadlines. You get the idea. Newborns weren't as bad as weddings, but they weren't really my thing either. Sweet little babies, brand new life, tiny toes, adorable. But the sessions themselves, they gave me stress more than joy. So I finally said no. And like I said in that intro, it felt so good. It's been at least 5 years, maybe longer, since I shot a full wedding. I honestly can't even tell you the exact date. That's how far removed I am from it now. And I do not miss it. I am breaking my own rule this fall. My little cousin Sam is getting married in October, and I agreed to shoot his wedding. But with one very important caveat. I'm bringing a second shooter who will actually be doing most of the heavy lifting. Why? Because I want to be there and enjoy my cousin's wedding. But I felt like with him, there's a little special bond as he was one of my first little models when I first started out. I mean, before I was even thinking of making this my career, I was taking classes, and him and his little sister basically were my models. And so I just felt like I had been photographing him since he was a tiny little boy. And I felt like it would be very odd for me not to photograph this big moment. Sometimes there is an exception to those rules. When I said no to weddings and newborns, I opened the door to what I actually love: high school seniors and headshots. One on one sessions where I can get to know my clients, where we can play with light and posing, where I can make people feel seen. Yes, there are time limits. Yes, there are still challenges, but we're not racing a clock to get two people down an aisle. The pressure is different. And for me, it's a pressure that fuels creativity instead of crushing it. Saying no helped me hone my craft. It helped me get really good at what I love instead of trying to do everything for everybody. I could focus. I could specialize. And that's where I found freedom. Friend, let's be real. This podcast would still be a scribble in my notebook if it weren't for Taylor Aller. She's been in my corner through all the behind the scenes magic, helping me actually make this thing happen. Taylor is a business strategist, speaker, and the queen of helping multi-passionate creatives build businesses that actually work for their lives, not the other way around. Want a taste of her brilliance? Snag her Make It Happen Planner and private podcast series, a behind-the-scenes look at how to create real momentum without chaos. The links are in the show notes. Trust me, you want Taylor in your corner too. Welcome to the photo confession booth. All right, Shutter Squad, it's time for my confession. And I thought since this was themed a little bit about weddings, I would dive back into those wedding days. I'll be honest, there was this one wedding early on where I was so focused on the timeline, the family group shots, the ceremony, the formals. I totally missed one really important moment, and I didn't get a shot of the bride with her mother. Now, a little bit in my defense, I did make shot lists because I know some of you are going to be like, why didn't you have a shot list? I did. And the bride and the groom approved it. Now, I don't know if they showed it to their parents or not. I can't know that, but I always have them, approve the shot list, email it to them, or I did. And yeah, so they missed it as well. But I knew this family, and afterwards, and it's like, that day, not even the mom realized it, but it's because weddings are just a lot. And that's why I always have a shot list so that I don't miss moments like that, right? So that the the bride and the groom can look over that shot list months prior, so that they know what I am going to photograph. So we missed it. Afterwards, mom, like after they got the gallery, all of that, that's when mom realized that I had forgotten. And yeah, she was I mean, it was very upsetting, and I totally understood. So we did do a wedding, or I'm sorry, it wasn't a wedding. We did do a mother-daughter photo shoot here in my studio. And it was very lovely. It was very fun. It was a little bit more, I feel like more them, a lot more casual. But it was still heartbreaking that knowing, I mean, I got pictures with her and her parents, but just didn't do one with just her mom. So don't forget that one, wedding photographers. Make sure that one is on your shot list. My confession, I let a moment slip by and it taught me a lesson I've never forgotten, obviously. Some photographers thrive on chaos of weddings, and that's amazing. For me, it was a clear signal to focus on what I love and where I can truly shine. All right, Shutter Squad, time for a little fun. Welcome to the photo confession booth, just for you. I want you to confess something about your photography business or your photography journey. Maybe it's a fear, a habit, or even a guilty pleasure. You can record this on your phone as a voice memo and email it to me. Or if you would rather not talk, you can also just email or DM me, and I will be putting that in a fun special bonus episode coming up later this season. Okay, so photographers, speaking of saying no, here's your weekly challenge. This week, I want you to identify one thing in your photography business that you've been saying yes to, even though it doesn't bring you joy. Then practice saying no. You can even write it down first, just the word no. Don't justify it. Don't explain it. Just say it and feel the relief. Remember, saying no doesn't make you difficult. It makes you intentional. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You just have to be right for the people and projects that actually matter to you. No is a boundary. No is a filter. No is a complete sentence. And no can change your business or creativity and your life. That's all for today's episode, the one where I said no and it felt so good. Thank you, Shutter Squad, for listening, for being part of this journey, and for letting me share my story with you. And don't forget, shutter up and shine, friends.